After an embarrassing 51-45 loss to TCU in the Fiesta Bowl, it sounds like Jim Harbaugh has made a decision on his future with Michigan. Oh wait, it's just a possible decision of the many that are out there. Harbaugh reportedly told Queen News City, quote, "Although no one knows the future, I think I will be coaching Michigan next year." That sentence is basically a conglomerate of vowels and consonants that can be summed up as meaning absolutely nothing. Nothing. I think I will be coaching at Michigan next year. No one knows the future. Now, Jim Harbaugh has reportedly only talked to one team regarding a head coach job opening. Last year, he had only one interview with the Vikings, which fell through, and then he made somewhat of a commitment to stay to Michigan long term. Ward minorly and modestly bumped up his buyout and contract, which I think Harbaugh should receive another raise after the overall successful season that he had, but we do not know. We don't know if Jim Harbaugh will for sure be at Michigan this coming season or not. I think he will. I think Jim Harbaugh will be here in 23, in 24, probably 25. Beyond that, since he'd be in his early mid-60s, I wouldn't be so sure, but if that prediction is wrong, listen, he's been out of the NFL for a while. His style of football that he likes to play at Michigan and that he liked to play at the Niners is not like, your modern NFL style of football. I don't know if he'd be out of touch of the league per se. I think he would be a, great manager, good head coach, but hasn't been in the NFL since 2014. Michigan is his alma mater. It's a place where he is peaking. As it stands, I know that Michigan, look, they lost to TCU in the semifinal. I've already processed it as a Michigan fan. I'm ready for 2023. I'm moving on. I'm ready for the national title game where I will be rooting for TCU religiously. But Michigan under Jim Harbaugh is peaking. And I'll get into this a little later, but I think the 2023 team will be even better than this year's team, which was even better than the 2021 team. From 2015 to 2020, Jim Harbaugh finished first in the East Division once, and it was a tie with a tie-breaking loss to Ohio State. He had 3 seasons of 10 wins. One of them, he had a win in the Citrus Bowl. The other 2 were losses in the Orange and the Peach Bowl. More often than not, there were stinging and embarrassing losses to finish out either the regular season or the postseason. Michigan in 15 and 18 got blown out by Ohio State. In 16, they lost in a controversial overtime game on the road. And in 16 and 18, 2 teams that to some looked like playoff teams and to others certainly looked like the best teams in the Big Ten for most of that season, they got handed losses themselves in the postseason to arguably inferior competition, at least from a matchup perspective before the games were played. These Michigan teams in 21 and 22, they have shown greater resiliency. They have shown greater toughness. They've shown greater trench play, both winning the Joe Moore Award. Michigan this year has seen its best quarterback play in the entire Jim Harbaugh era. Michigan last year and this year actually had running backs that were NFL backup or NFL draft worthy, and Blake Corum will be NFL starter worthy. These defenses are more sophisticated. They don't crack under great wide receiver cores or teams with superior star talent. They beat Ohio State twice, 2021 and 2022. Harbaugh, his incentive to leave is pride and ego. And seeing how Michigan, at least last year, barely bumped his salary, maybe more money. But I would argue it's the former. It would be the pride of winning a Super Bowl and fulfilling his desire to, if really fulfilling his desire to win a Super Bowl that he lost to his brother in 2012. That would be the reason to return to the NFL. Michigan is currently peaking. With Santa Ono as president, Michigan is finally churning its gears in the NIL era. Michigan, for the first time in program history, won 13 games. And Michigan, yes, they lost another New Year's Six Bowl. Well, they lost it by 6 points in a playoff semifinal. And if TCU wins the national title, well, Michigan's loss in the Fiesta Bowl this year, which was competitive, and Michigan almost won, would be a great improvement over last year when they got blown out by Georgia, and it wasn't close after the first snap was played. So Michigan's peaking. And whether Jim Harbaugh leaves or stays, I think Michigan is in great hands. Fantastic hands in 2023. So what will Michigan do, whether Jim Harbaugh stays or leaves? For one thing, the Wolverines will return a great majority of their 2022 starters, including all of their starting quarterbacks. They're returning McCarthy, all their starting safeties, all their starting linebackers. The projected two deep, and this is just projections right now, this is according to mgofish.com. Last update was January 1st of 23. This is just, it's incorrectly labeled. It says 1/1/22, but I'll link it down below. McCarthy's the projected starting QB. Corum's the projected starting running back with Edwards behind him. Wide receivers are Andrell Anthony, Roman Wilson, AJ Henning. Starting tight ends, Colston Loveland, Jefferson, Keegan, Nugent, Barnhart, and Jones are the projected offensive linemen. On defense, Rayshawn Benny, Mason Graham, Chris Jenkins, McGregor, Yabi Oki. That's your projected, defensive lineup / rotation. At linebacker, you got Colson, Houseman, Barrett, Harrell, and then at secondary, you got Makari Page, Rod Moore, Will Johnson, Chestnut, who's a projected incoming transfer, and Mike Sanristil. So you have a lot of returning starters or guys that got playing time in 2022 or even 2021 as well, and you have some big-time impact transfers like Houseman from Nebraska. He's going to be a huge, huge impact in that linebacker room. And you have experience. There haven't been any coaching moves made yet, though Michigan's season just ended literally a few days ago. So I anticipate there could be some changes, but haven't heard anything about Jesse Minter, Sharon Moore, Matt Weiss, or any of the assistants for the most part. So returning staff, returning players, there's a lot of continuity, a lot of consistency with this team. And JJ McCarthy, Corum, Edwards, Wilson, the offensive line with all the incoming transfers there. And then on defense with guys like Will Johnson, Michael Barrett, Junior Colson. I mean, these guys will only get better and better with another preseason of work in. I'm a Michigan fan, but this team was one of the best teams in the country this year. Watching this team compared to last year's team, there's a stark difference. This year's team was much better. They were. And a part of me, actually a great part of me, argues that if JJ McCarthy, talking about trashing a 3-3-5 defense, if him and the team didn't overlook TCU and showed them more respect, Michigan might have been one touchdown and extra point away from being 15-0 and winning it all. And I think this 2023 team will be better than this now past 2022 team, and I think they have a great chance to win the national title, and I think for sure, if everything plays out, they will win a playoff semifinal game with all they are returning and the lessons that they have learned from last year and this year, along with their successes. Jim Harbaugh, Going back to him, has entertained NFL offers and rumors before, but none of them have come through. It seems after every season at Michigan. I remember vividly in 2020, there were reports of him wanting out at Michigan and him going to an NFL job. 2021, it's the same thing. Those never fell through. After 2017, similar things happened. It's like after every season of Harbaugh being at Michigan, there have been rumors of him wanting to return to the NFL, and none of them have fallen through. And there are reports that he's frustrated with college football as a whole, or NIL, or all this different stuff, but with, again, going back to Santa Ono, and what he's doing at Michigan, and going back to Michigan's, wealthy donor base, well, they can take care of some of that, can't they, when it comes to NIL? And Harbaugh, with a staff that is much younger than his previous staffs, hired a lot of younger assistants, guys that are geniuses in their own right, but are younger, better recruiters, like, Steve Clinkscale. Mike McDonald wasn't a recruiter at all, but, still much better than Don Brown, better schemer. Jesse Minter helped recruit a decent Vanderbilt recruiting class. Here at Michigan, fielded one of the best defenses in the country. So I don't think Harbaugh is leaving. I think that these rumors, while they are true, and while he is probably, picking up the phone and answering these, I don't think he's leaving. And even if he is, regardless of who Michigan hires, if Harbaugh leaves, or if he leaves, regardless, Michigan is stacked. They're stacked entering 2023. If Corum returns, sounded like he was pretty 50-50 returning last time that I checked. He's going to be the nation's best running back. Edwards is one of the nation's best running backs, and he's returning. If Corum leaves, he'll be the starter. It'll mean that, Michigan's running back isn't as deep as it was last year, but they're still going to have one of the nation's elite running backs. Wide receiver loses a lot, but they return Roman Wilson. Wilson had an amazing game against a solid secondary in the college football playoff. JJ McCarthy was ranked as a top 15 QB, according to ESPN's QBR, and he had a 155 passer rating on the year, which was a best among Michigan quarterbacks in the Jim Harbaugh era. He's going to return and be even better than he was this year. Colston Loveland got some action because of Eric All's injury. The offensive line, Keegan, Barnhart, and Jones, they've all had their starts on the line this past season. And Miles Hinton, Nugent coming in from Stanford, and El Hadi, who also got some starts and got some snaps too. This offense and the defense too, most on the secondary do return. Rod Moore, Will Johnson, Makari Page, and Sandra Still all have gotten playing time. Colson, Barrett were starting linebackers. McGregor, Oki, Jenkins, and Mason Graham have also all gotten their snaps, and Graham was one of the best freshmen in the country as well. So this team's stacked. And the question, if Jim Harbaugh leaves and who is hired to replace him, is more about the long-term future than the short-term future. Because if Jim Harbaugh leaves, and let's say Michigan hires someone who is like just a competent coordinator, and they hire him, Michigan could have a Larry Coker situation where, not saying this coming season's team will be as good as 2001 Miami, I highly doubt that, but they could go out, go 14-1, 15-0, 13-1 again. They could still win the Big Ten, achieve all their goals they had this year, and then some. And it would be because of what Jim Harbaugh and this year's staff built. And then after that, if the new coach doesn't pick up on recruiting, if his schemes are like Don Brown's, for example, they're repeatable, they're, repetitive, and all these other things, then maybe it could fall off. And I don't exactly know who I would go after if Jim Harbaugh leaves. I think Todd Monken from Georgia, OC there, who's worked wonders. That would be a pretty cool hire. I don't really know or think of many other names besides Dave Aranda or, some other guys. I'm just naming really names off the top of my head. Dave Aranda and Todd Monken, those would be my top two. And maybe Lane Kiffin, although he is not really a big fan of recruiting. And I think for Michigan, you want to recruit, you want to contend for the national title, and you certainly have to recruit in order to do that. But I think Harbaugh is staying, and Michigan has a bright future for 2023, and I'm going to make a video on that in the coming weeks, maybe even in the coming week or two, talking about my very early thoughts and predictions for Michigan football in the 2023 season. Thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel or if you've been watching it for a while but haven't subscribed yet, please do. Hit the notification bell, comment your thoughts down below, subscribe again if you haven't already, and please like this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all around. Bye-bye.